Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. And this is another daytime recording, as you can see. Again, sorry about the lighting. We will get back to the nighttime recording soon, but I wanted to get some of these videos out, and I had some extra time this week, so I thought I would do some videos earlier in the day. Now, I do have a video talking about the D23 announcements that I'm going to be posting after this video, so check that out. It's going to probably be up this week, the same time. But I wanted to do a review on a movie that I had wanted to see from the beginning of this year that I finally got to watch because it's finally available to stream after however many months. I think like 5 months at this point now, 4 or 5 months. And also give my opinions on it because it's one of those movies that I feel like normally I wouldn't do a review on something that I find like quote unquote mid because this is how I felt about this movie. But considering the fact that I watched a movie that was very similar and reviewed it earlier on my channel this year, I kind of wanted to review this movie just to give the counterpoint because these movies were released at a similar time and they are pretty much very, very similar, and we'll get into it. But first, hello, my name is Shay. If this is the first time that you're seeing this channel, I do movie reviews and also theme park news and theme park event stuff. And I'm super excited to have you here. So if you are interested in any of this, like, please do me a favor, like this video, subscribe, keep checking here because I'm going to try to keep doing reviews as time goes on. Also, I'm staring at the I'm staring at the wrong spot. I got a tripod and I keep forgetting the camera's up here now. So I'll remember to look up there now. But yeah, so today we are going to review the movie Immaculate. And if you haven't seen this movie yet, it is available on Hulu. It does have some really heavy themes and we will get into it. This is your trigger warning if you don't like religious stuff or pregnancy. Someone is detected at your front door. Why are my neighbors? Anyways, yeah, if you have any religious trauma or fear of, or like dislike of talking about religion or a aversion to pregnancy, this would probably be the video to skip. This is your trigger warning, the only warning I'm gonna give, and going forward, this is how we're gonna like do things. I'm also not gonna go too in depth. I do find some of the themes offensive, but we'll get into it. I do find some of the themes offensive, and I'll explain it as we get through the video. But yeah, let's just jump right on into this creepy critique. Okay, so Immaculate was actually released in March 22nd in theaters, and it just hit streaming this week. I left it saying Netflix. It's actually on Hulu. It just hit streaming this past week. I believe it was August 16th. I didn't watch it till the 17th. Yeah. No, did I watch it on the 17th? No, I believe it was August 16th that it hit streaming. It's on Hulu currently. So if you want to watch this movie, feel free. It was directed by Michael Mohan, and the only really notable cast member, at least for me, maybe other people recognize some other people, is Sydney Sweeney, who is in Euphoria. I've never watched Euphoria, but I know that she's in it. So the critical reception is on IMDb. It actually has a 5.8 out of 10 and a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is kind of mid. So the synopsis goes as such. An American nun embarks on a new journey when she joins a remote convent in the Italian countryside. However, her warm welcome quickly turns into a living nightmare when she discovers her new home harbors a sinister secret and unspeakable horrors. All right, so if you weren't able to tell, this is another pregnancy horror movie. For some reason, this was the year of like pregnant women horror, but also mixed with like pregnant nun and religion horror. It was an interesting trope that they decided to dive into this year. And this was technically the first one that came out this year. It came out before The First Omen. And I don't remember for sure if I mentioned this, but I do believe that this movie kind of buried The First Omen because it came out first, and it actually, I remember people saying really good things about this movie when it came out, especially talking about the ending, which we will get into, and I am going to spoil the ending, and I gotta just say that it is a lot. It is heavy. Um, but I heard a lot of people talking about this movie and just praising it, praising the acting, praising the directing. It's a Neon film. Neon is sort of another indie like distributor. My cat's jumping around in the bathroom right now. Another like indie distributor that's really just kind of getting up there. Long Legs is probably the most notable movie you'll know right now from Neon. This is this is one of the movies that came from that, studio. Um, in my opinion, though, watching this movie after The First Omen, like, it's hard not to compare them, even though The First Omen is a prequel for a franchise and this one is not. This one is its own standalone thing. It's hard not to compare these two movies because they look and act so similar. There is one huge difference between the two plots, but we will get into that in just a second. Um, I will say the things that I did like about this movie was that there was some good body horror, but we will come back around to that. There was some good body horror. It was beautifully shot and well paced. It actually kind of moves really quickly through the plot. Like, you just meet Sydney Sweeney's character, who I cannot remember her name for the life of me. That's how mid this movie was for me. When you just meet her character and you get like a few scenes of exposition before she's pregnant. Whereas with like The First Omen, the story was like what the church was doing and finding this other person, or finding this person who was going to be the mother, and then getting through all of that to the realization that she was the mother, and then you had the pregnancy at the end. So again, it was a little bit interesting in my opinion how they like kind of like were like speed running. It was like literally you just got introduced to her character, you met her new friend at this Italian convent, and then like they're in this mutual bath, like cleaning themselves, talking, and then she just leans over and starts puking, and it's like, oh, okay, we're getting right into it, and then it just goes right into her being pregnant. Also, there's something else I want to add to that, but I'm going to talk about the plot a little bit here in a second. But yeah, no, I guess my next point was that it wraps up the plot quite quickly. Yeah, it is like, in my opinion, it's like a bite-sized movie, which is weird because it's an hour and 30 minutes long, but it's a bite-sized movie. It's like it goes through the plot very quickly. So some of the notable things I want to talk about with the plot before I get into the things I didn't like about this movie. First of all, got to talk about the elephant in the room. We're talking about pregnant nuns and religion. So the whole purpose of this movie, the whole plot of this movie, is that Sydney Sweeney's character comes to this Italian convent and suddenly discovers, despite never having relations with a man in her life, that she's pregnant. Immaculate conception, right? That's why the movie's called Immaculate. My biggest issue, however, with this is that when the convent finds out that she's pregnant, and they're like, oh, she's gonna have a baby, this is like weird because she's a nun and she's not supposed to be, and they're questioning her, they're asking her if she's ever laid with a man before, and she's like, no, I haven't. I found it really interesting because not everyone in the convent, but the convent is the reason she got pregnant. Now, they don't really explain how. They really don't explain how she was impregnated. Like, The First Omen was clear. It was a ritual that they performed, and the jackal creature mated with her. They make it very clear. This is not clear. It seems like there's some scientific stuff going on, and the main thing is that, and this is where the movie kind of, in my opinion, veers into offensive territory. Not personally for me, because I'm not religious, but I can see somebody else sitting down and watching this movie that might find huge offense in this. So there's a priest in the convent who basically like takes a liking to Sydney Sweeney's character from the beginning. And what ends up happening is that he ends up telling her that the way she ended up pregnant is that they have a nail from Jesus's crucifixion. It's like hard for me to talk about this because it is kind of messed up. But what they found in that nail was, like, on that nail was tissue and blood. And so in some way, they took that and impregnated her with Jesus, I guess. Like, I hate saying that because it's like, oh my gosh, it's so offensive to say. But yeah, they don't really explain how it works, because we all know that the way you get pregnant is not from blood and tissue. So I don't know if they're saying they created some sort of, if they're, I'm not sure if they created a substitute for what men have with the tissue and the blood. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. They don't really go into detail. It's just kind of like, yeah, we found this nail from Jesus's crucifixion and it still had DNA on it, and that's how you're pregnant. And it's like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. There's something missing. There's like a little spot missing. Like, it's so convoluted and kind of unbelievable. I almost would have believed it more if it was pure immaculate conception. Like, if she just woke up one morning, was pregnant, and it was God's will. You know, I would have almost believed it more if it was like that, rather than like, oh yeah, well, we found a way to scientifically impregnate you with Jesus. How? And they even go through the purpose of showing you that they've tried to grow this fetus. I don't know if they grew a fetus from his blood and tissue and then implanted it in her. Like, I'm guessing that's maybe what they're trying to say in this movie. I just feel like it was so wrong to me, like the whole thing. And I'm like, again, I'm not religious at all, but it was offensive to me. And I was like, oh, that's a weird take. Like, okay. You know, I don't know if I would have gone that route for this type of story. Like, it's a little bit much. And considering how it ends, it's a very, like, the ending is very, very upsetting. I would be very, very upsetting to a lot of people, not just for the obvious reasons for what happens, but also for people who are very religious, because of what this child symbolizes. And that's kind of where I'm going to leave it at, because I don't think I can explain the ending of this movie on YouTube, because it's not graphic, but it's graphic. Like, you don't see anything, but it's graphic. So if you want to look it up, I'm sure it's on Wikipedia. I'm sure somebody's written it out. I'm sure it's there. You can go look it up and find out for yourself. But I just find that was such a weird choice. It was such a weird choice. And I think that was probably one of my first issues with the movie, was I don't understand why you would write a movie where you're forcibly impregnating a nun with the DNA of Jesus and having her. There was no real reason for it. Like, they don't really explain what the reason. To me, it's like this movie was somebody's pregnancy phobia and religious trauma combined, whereas like The First Omen had a reason for what was happening. So yeah, that was probably my first. I would say that's probably my first bad thing about this movie, is that, like, what was the reason? Like, what was the reason? I'm sorry, I'm reading. What was the reason? Like, oh my goodness, I just can't wrap my head around why you would want to do that. Another thing I didn't really like, I've never really seen Sydney Sweeney in anything prior to this. I'm not crazy about her. I don't know what it is. I don't know if maybe she was just miscast in this film. Maybe this wasn't the right film for her. She seemed like a fish out of water. And I know that she's supposed to technically be a fish out of water because she's an American moving to Italy and living in an Italian convent. I keep saying convent in an Italian convent, but I just feel like she didn't come off as believable in the role that she was playing. That was just me. It is very much like The First Omen. There are a lot of similarities to The First Omen, and that's why I can see how The First Omen got buried, because they're very similar. It's a very similar plot. You've got a nun living in Italy, and you got a nun from America moving to Italy, getting pregnant, and giving birth to an abomination. And yes, I'm calling Sydney Sweeney's baby in this movie an abomination. We don't see it, but from the sounds we hear, it's an abomination. So yeah. So you have that whole through line there. However, I do feel like The First Omen was better shot, better acted, and was just a lot more compelling and gripping than this movie. Like, The First Omen is one I would definitely rewatch. I will probably never watch this one again. If you put them next to each other, like, I'm gonna be like, give me The First Omen any day. So we talked about body horror in the things I liked. There are some parts of this movie that there's some graphic-ish body horror. There was one scene I couldn't watch because she was tearing off her fingernail. I don't understand why that was happening. That stuff doesn't usually happen when you're pregnant, and I kept expecting, like, I was expecting the birthing scene to be super graphic and maybe, like, almost like alien chestburster version. Like, that's why her body was falling apart, because at one point in the movie, when she reaches her second trimester, she vomits up her tooth, and like it's like a full tooth just comes out, you know, and she's like, I'm losing my teeth, you know, and she rips off her fingernail, and it's like, why is this happening, and why is she doing this? Is she doing this because of the mental effects of the pregnancy, or is she doing this because is it because the pregnancy isn't viable? But even if the pregnancy wasn't viable, I don't think you'd puke up your teeth or rip your fingernail off. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm just kind of lost on that. Like, it seems like it was almost there just to be shocking rather than having an actual purpose to the plot. And there's a reason why she was losing her teeth and her fingernails were falling off. Like, just, oh, like, I was expecting by the time she got to her third trimester for her to look like decrepit and like falling apart. Like, and it's like, oh, the baby's sucking the life out of her. And maybe like when she gave birth to this new savior, the savior was like killed her in the way, like when it was coming out. Like, that's what I was expecting. And then that didn't happen. And I was like, so she just puked up her teeth and ripped off her fingernail because shock value? Like, it didn't make sense. The motivation for the church does not make sense. Like I said, someone was detected at the front door. My neighbors need to stop leaving their house. The motivation of the church does not make sense. The one thing about The First Omen, love it or hate it, the motivation of the church made sense. The fact that the church got this demonic entity to impregnate a nun who was already chosen for this, you know, this goal. The fact that this demonic entity, like, the whole point was to bring about something that was so evil that people would turn to the church. It might be a little bit convoluted, but it makes sense at the end of the day that they would do something this drastic to get people's attention. Whereas this was like, there was really no motivation. Like, oh, we need, like, we just want to, we have Jesus's tissue and blood, so let's go for it. Let's just create the Savior 2.0. Like, they don't really go in on, are they trying to jumpstart the rapture? You know, are they trying to jumpstart the rapture? Are they, you know, like, they don't really give like a motivation. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, we impregnated you with the son of Christ, you know, because we could. You were blonde, you were pretty, and you were from America. It's because we could. That's why. And like I said before, and I kind of mentioned this in like a little bit ago, the ending is going to be, it would be a lot for a lot of people. Like I said, I'm not going to say it because, oh boy, it is heavy. Like, it is a heavy ending. I can see why a lot of people were kind of like, oh, you know, when they watched this, I can see why a lot of people felt uncomfortable or even like horrified by the ending, because it is a horrifying concept. But yeah, I just personally, I'm like, I don't really like, I thought the ending was a little bit much, even without being a religious person. I thought the whole movie was a little bit offensive personally. And again, that's even me not being religious, not having a problem with movies that kind of like poke at religion. This movie just felt a little bit kind of like Tarot, where it's like a little bit offensive. Okay, sorry about that really long delay finishing up this video. Wow, now I have streaks over my face. Okay. Sorry about that really long delay about trying to finish this video. The maintenance guy came to bring us a portable AC, so had to help him get in the apartment and get set up. So I don't remember what I left off at, but we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Wherever train of thought that I had was gone, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up because I don't want to talk about this movie really that much anymore. I don't really have much else to say. So my final thoughts. Basically, if I had seen this one before I saw The First Omen, like many other people had, a lot of people saw Immaculate first and then saw The First Omen, so they liked Immaculate better. I probably would have liked this one better, but I feel like everything that Immaculate did, The First Omen did way better. And honestly, like, actually, I don't even know if that's true. Like, thinking back on it now, I probably wouldn't have liked this one better. I feel like I would have been equally as critical about this one because I do feel like it's a bit offensive, you know, personally. I didn't really go into this movie wanting to compare the two. It really wasn't until like I got into the swing of watching it that I was like, yeah, I'm kind of putting you both on this pedestal, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing. The movie is definitely good. I don't think I would recommend it to people, like, unless they're just like curious and they don't care about the offensive stuff. I don't think I'd go around recommending it to people. It's not one I'm probably ever going to watch again. Not like The First Omen, which I own The First Omen now because I loved it that much. It's definitely not one I would ever like watch again, unless I'm like with someone that really wants to watch it and I'm like, all right, let's do it. My skull rating for this one, I would give it 3 out of 5 skulls. It's mid. It's a mid movie. There's really nothing else I can say about it. But that is it. This is probably gonna be one of my shorter reviews because, like I said, oh my god, this lighting is terrible all of a sudden. The sun is like hitting in the perfect spot. All right, hold on, we can fix this. There we go. Just flip it the other way. Now the sun's going up. Yeah, so I fixed that. We're good. Yeah, so this is probably gonna be one of my shorter reviews. I'm gonna have to cut the part out where I was laying on the floor waiting for the guy to finish doing what he was doing in the living room. It was awkward, but yeah, I'm probably gonna cut all that out. But yeah, no, thank you again for watching. Thank you for checking this out. We are so close to HHN season starting. We have like just over a week before it's here, and I am stoked. I am excited. I do have another video I'm going to be working on. I have 2 more videos. One is going to be dropping this week as well. Not sure if it's going to drop on the same day as this one. It might drop the day after. But the other one is going to drop the probably next week, and it is going to be Halloween Horror Nights related. So I'm excited. If you're going to be at Halloween Horror Nights opening night, like, and you know, you are enjoying yourselves, like, let me know what you like. I'm gonna be there all weekend, 3 days. Gotta pick out my fits soon for that, and I'm super pumped. I'm ready to go. I've been waiting for this all year, and this is like the time of year when I come into my full power. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this review of this movie. If you're interested, it is on Hulu. You can go check it out for yourself. You can decide if this is something you really like or not. If you've seen The First Omen, you can compare and contrast and see which one you like better. And yeah, just let me know what you think down in the comments of this movie, and if you're ever going to watch it, if you watched it, if you like it, if it's one of your favorites of the year. It's definitely low on my list. I think it's probably almost as close to, it's probably close to, if not as low as Late Night with the Devil for me. But yeah, I will see you guys in my next video, which will probably be very soon. And thank you again for joining me on another creepy critique.